Okay, if you're new to Helldivers and the settings feel a little bit clunky to you, like they did to me, this is just a quick video on some of the settings I've changed that seem to make things run a bit smoother. Some things may work for you, others may not. If none of it works for you, feel free to write a letter, post it to your own address, and somebody that cares a lot more than I do about your opinions will receive it, no doubt. So jumping in straight away, gameplay, we've got remember aim mode. I've put that on per weapon, so if you're using a sniper and you prefer to aim in through the scope, this will remember that, but your other weapons that you don't want to do that to won't keep zooming in when you don't want them to. That's handy. Weapon switch mode, I've turned that to Helldivers Classic because basically pressing Y or triangle will switch from your primary to your special weapon, which are the only two weapons I tend to use. If you use your secondary weapon a lot, just keep it on default, but I don't tend to use that weapon. On to visuals, a lot of this will be personal preference depending on what your screen is, so play around with the screen brightness, but camera shake, I'd always recommend turning that off. Field of view, I've turned that up to the maximum. I don't know about your squad, but my squad tend to care more about dropping a 500 kg bomb on my forehead than they do about telling me there is a charger on his way up to my back passage. So I like to see as much as I can to keep my eye out. Same thing, motion blur. If I've got the option of seeing something or seeing something blurry, let me just see it. Same again, depth of field. If you've got the option of seeing something clearly in the distance or not, I prefer clear, so I've turned depth of field off. Bloom, again, I don't want stuff shining in my eyeballs, so I've turned that off. Quality profile, play around with that, see how your system runs. I've got it on performance mode at the minute, and things tend to run quite smoothly. I might change it to quality just to give it a test, but I mean it's PvE, it doesn't need to look that great. Performance works fine for me. Anti-aliasing, smoothing out jagged edges, I've got that on. Sharpness I've also turned up to 1, and that seems to be alright for me. Audio, I normally have master volume on 11, but I've turned it down for some testing. Music volume, I've turned that down to 4. Likewise, sound effects volume I've turned down to 4, and that's mainly just so that the dialogue volume comes through a bit clearer, because as I mentioned before, some of my teammates like to drop bombs on me, and if they don't tell me about it, I'm hoping I'll hear their characters scream out that they have just dropped a nuke on me, so at least give me a second's warning before I get obliterated. If you've got a better team than I have, then you might not need dialogue volume at all, but we can dream. What else we got? On HUD, a lot of this I've left standard. Let's have a look. Tooltips I've turned off. Hints I've turned off. Reticle visibility, I've turned that onto visible, so it's always visible instead of dynamic, and that's because I've changed the way my grenades work, so I like to see the reticle there all the time, but I'll go into that later. The rest of it looks pretty standard. Compass I've got on visible. I've changed the width to short because I don't need a massive compass. I've put the small notches on to give me a bit more accuracy. Likewise, ordinal directions like northeast, northwest, I've got that on. Keeps me from trying to work it out because I'm a very simple man. What else have we got? That looks standard. Accessibility, I've changed my reticle color to red just so it pops off a bit more. Subtitles I've turned off because I've got ears, so you know, that's no disrespect to people that haven't got ears. I mean, if it was disrespect to people that haven't got ears, I suppose they wouldn't know about it because I haven't put subtitles on this video, so we can probably move on. Controller, look sensitivity I've turned up. You can compare that against what you've got, but just play around with it. Aim sensitivity, I've also turned that up as well. I'm coming from COD, so it's more fast paced over there. What else have we got down here? Dead zone, I've turned that down to 0.03 because it's quite a new controller. Keep increasing that until your camera stops moving on its own. Controller sticky aim, I've turned that up to the max. I don't know if that matters on PvE, but if it's there, why not use it? And then the main thing I wanted to talk about is the change binding settings on controller. So on general, you can change the climb, click on that and just push up on your movement stick, and then that means whenever you're moving forward you'll automatically climb. That's quite helpful instead of pressing X, which I think is the default. The map, I think default for that, you press your middle button and then you press your D-pad to move across the map to try and place pins down. To use your D-pad on the map stops you from moving because it's your left thumb, unless you're playing claw, which I don't. So I've changed that to the right analog stick, and I found that is a lot smoother to move around the map while also playing the game in the background. So try that out. Stratagems, this one's controversial. I've left the activate stratagems on the left bumper, L1, but instead of using a D-pad I've changed this to the face buttons, so triangle, X, square and circle. That's just so that when I'm running I can keep my left thumb on the left stick and keep moving while using my right thumb to call in the stratagems. Now on your screen, on your interface, it'll still say left, right, up, down, so you'll have to remember that triangle is up, X is down, because you know that's where they are in your controller. Self-explanatory. Some people might like it, some might not. Personal preference. On combat, I've got melee onto double tap the left stick, and ordinarily I think that is the right stick button, but I've changed the right stick to quick stim because quick stim is usually the D-pad, and again I don't like using a D-pad because especially if I'm stimming, I'm under attack, I want to be running, so I want to keep my left thumb on my movement stick, use my right thumb to quick stim there with the right analog. So change my melee to left stick to get it out of the way. It's a double tap so it doesn't interfere with the sprint function. Ordinarily I might suggest taking melee off altogether because it doesn't do anything to the bots, but my team might be different for you. My team need a slap sometimes, okay? Now I don't condone violence, but these guys, if you play with them you'd know, okay? They need a slap sometimes, so I've left melee on and I've put it to L3. Personal preference, do what you want, but that works for me. Quick grenade. Now coming from COD, you press R1 or right bumper and it throws a grenade. On this game you ordinarily have to press right on the D-pad and then R1, so it's two buttons instead of one. Why? Okay, just change quick grenade to R1 and then boom, you can throw your grenade. That is also why I've put my reticle on visible instead of dynamic, so it's always on the screen. So when you're quick fragging down a egg hole or whatever it is, you'll know where you're aiming before you've quick fragged. So R1 on quick frag, stim on R3, smooth, boom. What else have we got that is not standard? These all look standard to me. Comms. I think the rest of this is standard. So that's about it from me. If this helps, great. If it doesn't, to be fair, it probably wasn't meant for you. Really, it's meant for a guy named Mike. He keeps asking for my settings, and I figured rather than keep repeating myself, I'd make a video. If it helps one other person out, brilliant. If it doesn't, just write a massive long comment, put your heart and soul into it down in the bottom, and I can promise you I'll pay no attention to it. But if it makes you feel better, hey, everyone's a winner. Okay, so enjoy, and I'll see you out there.